Okay, so we're back to Pirkei Avos. I feel like it's been a while. I think it has. Um, before I forget, next week looks good. The week after, definitely no Thursday night shiur or Friday shiur. I have to be in West Hartford almost all week, so gonna cancel that. But next week should be good. Okay, so we are up to Mishnah, Perek 4, Mishnah 7. And just to give a little overview here, um, most Mefarshim seem to take. Let me back up. I don't think we're going to get radically different ideas from different Mefarshim tonight. I think we're going to get like more of like a general thrust with some different subtleties. So that's going to be it. And I do kind of want to try to wrap it up by like I'm going to aim for 9, which means that like 9:15 ish will probably be wrapped it up. Okay. So Rabbi Yishmael Beno Omer, and this is Rabbi Yishmael. According to most opinions, it's the son of Rabbi Yossi Glili. Says HaChosech atzmo min adin porik mimenu eva v'gata ushvu hashav v'hagas libo b'hora'a shota rasha v'gas ruach. Okay, so Chosech is not the same as Choshech. Anyone want to try translating? That word itself is a little obscure. We've had it in Mishlei before. Okay, so it means one who withholds himself, okay, from hadin.
Judgment?
Yeah,
Or the judgment?
Yeah, from judgment. Yeah, the judgment. I don't know why it says the, and I feel like it's flow smoother without the, so we're just gonna leave it like this. Porik mimenu eva bagaza ushvu hashav.
Removes from himself, is it hatred, stealing, and false swears?
Yep. So hatred, steal, I'll say theft, and false. Oh, so this is actually interesting. False. First of all, side note. Uh, I think it's a regional thing. The way you said it. I've heard it like I used to think it was just a thing that like teenagers said, but I've heard adults say it also in New York. They call it swears as opposed to oaths, which is the word. Um, like in outside of New York, I've only heard this in New York. Outside of New York, the verb is to swear, but I've only heard people treat it as a noun in New York. Like I made a swear, or I don't know what New Yorkers say, like a swear, like a swear is a thing that is like I've only heard here. I wonder if it's elsewhere in the United States, but I'm gonna go ahead and go with the word oath. Okay, um so there's a difference between shvuas sheker and shvuas shav. So shvuas sheker is a false oath. You know what a shvuas shav is?
In vain.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and call it. Yeah, in vain is good. An oath in vain. I'm trying to think if there's a better way to say that. A vain oath, whatever. Okay. All right. V'hagas libo b'hora. Okay, gas libo is also a weird phrase. Anyone know what that is?
Someone who's like a haughty heart or
Yeah.
something, like
Yeah.
raises his heart.
Yeah, one who I guess makes his heart haughty bahora. In how do you translate hora?
Like teaching of halacha. I mean, that's not exactly the right word.
Yeah, right. Yeah, literally that's what it means. But so I'm gonna go ahead and say halachic ruling. Okay, halachic rulings. Um, or I guess in the act of halachic ruling, I guess is singular. In the act of halachic ruling, shote rasha v'gas ruach.
Is a fool, a stupid person.
Yeah, fool. Let's say fool.
And a wicked person, and a person who's haughty of spirit.
Yep, and one who is haughty of spirit. And this is what's a little weird here, by the way. It does use the word gos twice here. Okay, fine. All right, so yeah. Okay, so what are the questions here? Yeah, Lauren.
I guess what are the definitions of like hachosech atzmo min hadin and gas libo b'hora?
Okay, so what does chosech atzmo min, oh sorry, not atzmo min hadin mean? And then what does hagas libo behora mean? Okay, there's going to be two primary questions.
And then also like the porek mimenu, kind of also like the result of that, and how does it work?
Okay, so how do these three porek mimenu results follow from chosech atzmo min hadin? Yeah, Devorah?
Yeah, it's like not clear to me who the subject are of Ava Shav. Like, is he not going to hate, or are people not going to hate him? Is he not going to steal, or people want to steal? Yeah.
Okay, right. Okay, so we'll just also first ask the implicit question in both of your things, which is, what? I guess hold on a second. I guess we have to put this up here. What are these three results? Okay, Ava, Gezel, Ushvuas, Shav, and then like who is the subject of these? You know, are they hating him, or is he hating someone, etc.? Okay, and then how do these three flow from the action or the inaction? I guess, yeah. All right, what else? Yeah, Ayala.
The same for the second half. What are the three results?
Yeah, what do shote, Russia, gas ruach mean in this context? And then like how do these, how are these characteristics of hagas libu b'hora? Yael?
Also, specifically, the last one is weird to me, gas ruach, because isn't that like by definition?
Yeah,
So what
right.
more is that adding?
Okay, right. So specifically, what does gas ruach add to gas libo? Isn't this guy haughty, by definition, from the get-go? Yeah, Deborah?
Yeah, this is sort of an elaboration on that first question. I'm just confused what position the person was originally in that he was withholding himself from din. Like, din seems like it's a good thing that we engage in regularly.
Okay, good. All right, I'm going to split this into two or three questions. Okay, one is I'm going to put this I'll put this up here, which is I guess the mishnah seems to suggest that withholding oneself from din, what happened? From din is a good thing, okay, or at least not a bad thing. But isn't din a good thing? Don't we have like shoftim and like Sanhedrin, and halacha? Okay, right. All right, so that's one question. The other question is you asked is what scenario, like I guess what decision-making scenario does the first clause describe? Okay, meaning like what situation is he in such that this choice is before him? Okay, we don't really need to ask that for the second one because like the choice there is clearly either you are gas libo b'hora or you're not. But like chosech atzmo min hadin, what's the alternative? Yeah, I guess that's the other way to say it, is like, what is the alternative? Yeah, Ayala.
How are these two halves related to each other?
Yeah.
Like, are they supposed to be like similar situations, opposite situations?
Right. So what is the relationship between the two halves? When Isaiah and I were preparing this, then we felt like this was just one big Mishlei pasuk, just with Pirkei Avos contents, but Mishlei format. So yeah. Okay. Yeah. What else? I felt like there was a third question in a divorce thing, but maybe I was just Oh, I know what I was gonna say. Yeah. I guess I already covered this. I was gonna say like what's the takeaway attitude that we should have about din from here? In other words, like how does this mishnah change our hava amina like view. Havamina. Is that how you spell Havamina? Havamina. Why can't I not spell Havamina today? / default view of the role of din in Torah. Yeah, Lauren.
Yeah, this is just like the classic question about what is this doing in Pirkei Avos.
So what's funny about that? I feel like of all of the mishnayos we've done recently, I feel like this one is the most like, okay, this one makes sense. It's in Pirkei Avos,
Yeah.
because at least with our theory that Pirkei Avos is, I mean, I know we've been doing the theory that Pirkei Avos is for Hasidim in training, but it seems like the default thing, at least according to the Rambam and the Sforno and others, is that this is primarily aimed at judges. Right. So you could ask like who specifically is the audience, who specifically is the audience of this within the pool of like people who are relevant to din and hora. Unless you mentioned
I think yeah, I get that it just really seems like Mishlei, like you were saying. I'm kind of so put off by how it's phrased and
yeah,
what it's even saying. Like I'm just so confused what it means.
I will just I know we started our Pirkei Avos shiur with chapter 3, but just to show you, in the first mishnah, so the opening mishnah, I'm in Bava Kama. First mishnah says, Hevu masunim b'din. That's the first statement, is be deliberate when engaging in din, in judgment. And I think there are several other judgment-based things in here we go, like this one, in 8. Al tas atmecha orcha hadayanim. Don't make yourself like I don't know exactly what orcha hadayanim are. But something with judges. When the litigants are standing in front of you, they should be in your eyes like wicked. When they leave, then they should be like innocent. When they accept the din. The next one, you should investigate the witnesses. Okay, so like there's a lot of these din based ones. So it is weird that this one is all the way over here. I don't know if that's like chronological or what, but yeah. Okay, I feel like these are the main questions. There is one factual question, which is I'm just gonna put this in 11. Okay, who I guess additionally, is this even talking to a dayan? Okay, and I mentioned in the shiur description, we're going to take this as it is talking about a dayan. I saw a couple mafarshim say that this could be talking to the litigants. But like I even just saw the Abravanel give us an explanation for that. And he's like, it's not right. He says the first explanation is better. So we're going to go ahead and assume it's for the judges. But I just wanted to point out that you could read it as about the litigants. Okay, I feel like those are the main questions. I'm going to go ahead and put them in the chat. And I think with this one, we always have this dilemma in Pirkei Avos of do we try to come up with our own idea like in Mishlei, or like do we go straight to the Mefarshim? I feel like here the main, there are some moves that we can make, or there are like possibilities we can get. So anyone have any intuitions, either full ideas or partial ideas? Yeah, Tamar?
Just a basic idea about how the halves are opposites. At first I was pretty confused about what the first part is talking about, but if you take it to mean that you are bowing out from being the judge of a case,
there you go.
Then it's the opposite of the second row.
Okay, yeah. So the first one is bowing out of being involved in the case. Second one is someone who's so I don't know. I guess it depends on how you say the haughtiness manifests itself. Either he's so gung ho about it, or he throws himself into it, or like he's like, I got this. It's going to be like a complete opposite of that. Yeah, I think that's the flame shot. Okay. Anyone else have any ideas, intuitions? Yeah, Devorah.
Yeah, I guess it can't be a situation where people really need a dayan, and
right.
You are a dayan, and there's no one around, and you're
right.
like, I'm sorry, I can't.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, so that raises another question, which is I'm going to actually tack this onto the decision-making scenario question, is and what are the parameters? Okay, so for example, if you're the only judge in town, is this suggesting that you is the fancy word recuse yourself? Am I imagining that?
I think that's right.
Yeah, recuse yourself from judgment. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good observation. Yeah, it does not seem to be saying that. I mean, unless it is. Yeah, Lauren?
Question on Tamar's idea. So, so in the halachic atman, you're holding yourself, you're a judge and you're not giving judgment. Is that what you're saying? And then I'm confused how the Pirkei Avos Eva Gazel and Shav works with that.
Yeah, Tamar, you want to try answering that? Or do you have any intuition about that? I'm kind of holding back my statements because I don't want to give anything.
I mean, I didn't really think about it, but maybe it's like these are pitfalls of being involved in a case.
Okay, pitfall is a great word, right? In other words, however we understand these are pitfalls of being involved in judgment, and we don't really know even what the probability is, but if you recuse yourself, then you're definitely avoiding these pitfalls.
So I guess the whole message is the same, like maybe Gaslibo and Jose Rasmo aren't necessarily not opposites, but it's like don't be too involved in a case. It's better to be like humble about it and wary about which things you get involved in.
Right. That's actually another good question here, which is what does the middle ground look like? Right. In other words, practically and like midos wise. All right. In other words, so you're not recusing yourself and then you're not being haughty. So like what? Yeah, I guess what is that? So you are doing din, but sorry. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure even how to describe that. I guess it depends on what stance we take on these other things. I was gonna say one more thing also, which is no, I can't remember. Yeah, Ayala?
I was gonna say maybe based off of the question of who the subject of the first few are.
Yeah.
Can you say that it's the people who are getting judged and that a judge who is very quick to just like he sees the case and immediately he'll make a judgment, then the people will end up getting upset and feel like it's unfair and it will result in like hatred between them, theft between each of them, and like someone or whatever, just like improper court behaviors and oaths and things like that.
That's exactly how all the Mepharshim go. Yeah, and it's just kind of like what the date is. Yeah, okay, that's good. Okay, so let's dive in. Yeah. Oh, sorry, did you say something else?
I was just gonna say the second half. Yeah, also that is like they'll perceive him in that way.
Okay.
And he's
perceive him that way, not that he actually is that way. That's interesting. Okay, yeah, that's possible. Yeah, I didn't see anyone who said that. It seems like they all say that he actually is that way, but I could see that being a thing based on the first half. I remember what I was going to say. Another thing I think based on what Tamara said that these are like pitfalls that you would avoid. I think that's another thing that gives us a Mishlei flavor because it's seems very self-centered, I mean, not the second half so much, but the first clause is like, yeah, you don't want to, people to hate you or like, or anything like that. Like, just avoid din. All right, so let's go into the Mepharshim, and I just want to say that what we're going to do is like this. Rashi only explains some clauses. Rambam only explains some clauses, but then they're going to bring up, or I guess Rashi is going to bring up something that is going to be a big factor in everyone's explanation, and we're going to go through some halachos about that, okay? Then the only full explanation that like explains everything in depth is Rבינו Yona, okay? So we're going to like treat this as a like what do you call not direct flight, like treat this as like connecting flights, a bunch of connecting flights, okay? So we'll get a bunch of facts and then settle after we do Rבינו Yona, okay? So that's gonna be the plan. All right, and I did not have time to type translations of all of these or even put it in ChatGPT. I was rushing to finish my article, which I did finish before this tonight, so that's good, but I just had time to like make the document. Okay, so Rashi says Hachosek asma min adin she'eno rotze leishiv badin ella im kain mispashrin ze im ze. He doesn't want to sit in judgment unless I'm going to just add here the litigants make a compromise with each other. Okay, so I'll explain what that means in a second. So what happens? Porek mimenu eva v'gazal ushvushav. He removes from himself animosity, theft, and unnecessary oath taking, foolish taking she'in halalu balidinim sonim oso. For these litigants will not hate him, ve'eno bali de onesh mitotazadin, and he will not come to punishment as a result of the judgment. Okay, so again, Rashi's not really explaining, and then he just says Shota of Russia, and he doesn't really explain it. Okay, so the key word here is this verb. Okay, mispashrin, or the noun is pshara. Okay, so I only had like the vaguest notions about pshara. Anyone know what pshara is?
Isn't it like sort of when you choose to do like arbitration instead of going?
Exactly. It's like settling it out of court, right? Right, where you make you work it out by yourselves and you don't make recourse to the din. Okay, so I actually have not been through this, but the Rambam has halachos on what this looks like. Okay, so he says like this. So this is in Hilchos Mishnah Torah Sefer Shoftim Hilchos Sanhedrin Onshim HaMesurין Lahen 22:4. Mitzvah lomar lebalei din betchila. It is a mitzvah to say to the litigants initially, okay, at the outset, B'din atem rotzim or pshara? Do you want judgment or pshara? Okay. Im ratu b'pshara, if they want pshara, osim beinehem pshara, then we do pshara with them. V'chol beis din she'ose pshara tamid harizeh meshubach. Every court that always does pshara, pshara is praiseworthy. Alav Nemar, and regarding it, it is regarding that court. It is said, Mishpat Shalom Shaftu Bisharechem, judge a peaceful judgment in your gates. Okay, and that's a Zechariah 8:16. Ezehu Mishpat Sheish Imo Shalom. What is a judgment that has peace with it? Haviz Omer ze bitua. This is, I think bitua literally translates to negotiation. Okay. All right. So that's one memra. Then the Rambam brings down a similar one. V'chein b'David. Likewise, b'David hu Omer, with David, it says, Vayhi David ose mishpat utzaka. David did judgment and righteousness. Ezehu mishpat sheish imo tzedakah. What is a judgment that has righteousness with it? Haviomer zebitua. This is negotiation. Vihi pshara, which is compromise. Okay. But meidvar memurim. Now here's some little mechanics here. When does this apply? Kodem gemardin, before the verdict is issued. Afal pi shishama divrehim v'yeda lahechan adinot. This is a very interesting thing. Even though he heard their words and knows where the judgment inclines, mitzvah livtzoa. It is a mitzvah to engage in negotiation. Aval achar shegamardin, but after the verdict has been issued, the Amar, and he said, Ish ploni atachayev, ish ploni atazachai, you so and so are liable, and you so and so are vindicated. Eno rashai lasos pshavinim. He is no longer permitted to make a compromise between them. Ela yikov hadin sahar. Rather, I don't exactly know what this phrase means. The judgment should pierce the mountain. Okay, so that's the interesting thing. So in other words, there's two opportunities, or I guess two bookend opportunities for pshara. First one is at the outset, we say, do you want a court case or do you want to resolve this? And seemingly the judge helps them resolve it, right? Like he's overseeing the negotiations. But then even if they say we want judgment and they start judging and he hears all their arguments and he's about to paskin, then you could still do pshara, but only after he paskins, then that's it. Okay, then then it's a point of no return. Okay, now this is the source I found at 8 o'clock tonight. Okay, so it's funny, on Shabbos I was going through with Isaiah, and I was flipping through Pirkei Avos. I'm like, I know that the Rambam addresses this somewhere, and I just couldn't find it, and I forgot about it until just now. So I'm actually going to just read it. I'm not going to type it out. Too lazy. So he says, "V'yinhog." This is in the Hakdama to the Pirkei Avos. "V'yinhog barov dinav b'derech pshara." A person, a judge, I think he's saying, should conduct himself in the majority of his judgments in a manner of pshara. V'im yuchal hadayan lefasher bein hayarivim tamid v'lo yifsok din klal harz mishubach. If the judge can always work out an agreement between the litigants and never paskin a din at all, that's praiseworthy. V'im yefshar lefasher liyifsok din. And only when it's impossible to compromise, then he should paskin. V'lo yachbid. He should not weigh heavily. Klomar al yidei kvias zmanim rechokim lediun. Okay, this might not be relevant. Rabinovich brought this down. I'm just going to skim through this. You know what? I'm going to actually just do even more laziness. I'm just going to translate this. What was that?
I have a question. Is this Parish Mishnayos his total introduction, or is his intro?
This is, I think. So this is the part of the problem. Is on Shabbos I was looking for where this is, and I couldn't find it. I thought it was in. There's a place where he goes through the order of the Masechtos, and I could have sworn it was there, but I couldn't find it where I thought. So maybe it's around there.
So this is like his. Would this be on the Parish Mishnayos where he was talking, getting the Mishnah from, where it talks about the laws of judges? It's not related to Pirkei Avos. It's not
related to Pirkei Avos. No.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. I'm just going to read this in English, and I'm again, I don't know if this is accurate, but I'm just reading the ChatGPT. He should follow in most of his rulings the path of compromise. If the judge can always make peace between the adversaries and never issue a strict judgment, that's praiseworthy. But if compromise is not possible, he should issue a ruling. He should not be burdensome, that is, by setting distant times for hearings. He should allow the litigant to defend himself, even if his words are lengthy or foolish. And if, according to their arguments and what he perceives, it is not possible to allow this, he should immediately make a decision and issue the ruling. We find that our sages acted this way, binding hands behind backs, administering lashes, compelling actions, stripping clothes, and tearing up validated documents if they saw fit to do so. Many similar examples exist, and such firmness is described by the phrase, "let the law pierce the mountain." Okay, so that's what it means. It meaning like basically be merciless in letting the law take its course, or doing whatever you need to like implement it. In summary, a judge must be like a skilled physician. Oh, this part I know. I always quote this part. Why can I never find this then? Okay, a skilled physician, as long as he is able, will heal through food-based remedies rather than drugs. If he sees that the illness is too severe to heal through diet alone, he will use remedies similar to food, such as various drinks or fragrant mixtures, herbal tinctures. If he sees that illness is even more severe and these remedies cannot overcome it, he will resort to stronger drugs, giving the patient scammony, I don't know what that is, milky herbs or cactus juice, or other bitter repugnant medicines. Similarly, the judge should strive to mediate. If he cannot, he should judge gently, humbling himself and speaking softly with the litigants. But if he cannot do so due to the obstinacy of one party who seeks to prevail unjustly over the other, then he should assert his authority forcefully, as we have said. Okay, all right, this is good Rambam. Okay, so that's Rashi. So this is addressing Devorah's question about the scenario and also the attitude towards din, right? That din is I don't want to call it an evil, but relative to pshara, it's a necessary evil. The preferred course is mishpat shalom, or what was the other thing David called it? A din, mishpat utstaka. And if you only when you can't do that, then you should make recourse to actual din. And then the alternative here, what does it mean chosek atzmam in a din? So Rashi basically says that really you should only sit in, or you should only function in your capacity as a judge when the litigants want to make a compromise. But if they want din, you should not do it. Now, this doesn't fully answer the question because, like Devorah said, what if you're the only judge or you're the only one capable? Other Mefarshim are going to address that. Okay, but right now, Rashi seems to be saying you should only sit in judgment if you're going to be facilitating this kind of talk. Yeah, Tamar?
Did we already discuss why pshara is better? I don't feel like I understand that.
No, we didn't. And we can actually add that to the list here. Okay, is why is pshara better? I want to hold off on discussing that until we read the Rבינו Yona, though. Yeah, Devorah?
I thought actually that Rashi is addressing this situation, even of where it's just one dayan. Like, could Rashi not be saying, it's good to be a dayan who sort of always super encourages pshara? Like maybe it's not.
Okay. So are you putting the emphasis on the word rotze?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, you could do that. You could do that. Yeah, that would be a way to do it, right? That he doesn't want to sit in judgment. Yeah, that's a good deal because I was treating it as he's not willing to sit in judgment. But rote could also mean like he doesn't prefer to sit in judgment unless they make a compromise. Yeah, I would accept that. That's good reading. Okay, so let's now go to Rambam, who also does not say much. So he just says gas libo. He doesn't say much here. Gas libo is a haughty. Okay. Boteach uma'ez, I think that's how you say it, lahoros, mibli yira umibli matinus. He is confident and brazen, or audacious, lahoros, to issue halachic ruling, bli yira, without fear, umibli matinus, and without deliberation. Okay, so haughty, it does not seem like he's saying it means haughty. It seems like he's saying, I guess maybe brash might be a good English word. Okay, like brash means confident, like somewhat brazen, without fear, and without, like, using like quick also. Okay, Deborah, is your hand up from before, or you raised it again? I didn't see.
Oh, sorry, that's from before.
Oh, okay, fine. Okay, so now there are a couple Rambams where he talks about these qualities. Okay, so even though he doesn't explain stuff here, he does talk about this in his in the halachos. Okay, you know what? I just, this is gonna be too much for me to type this tonight. Okay, I'm just going to read this in Hebrew. Okay, so this is in Hilchos Talmud Torah Hey Daled, and he just got done talking about how you need permission from your Rebbe before you paskin. So he says, "V'lo kol mi shemes rabo muter lo leshev v'lahoros b'Torah." Don't think that when your Rebbe dies, then you can just suddenly go and paskin. Ela im kein haya talmid she'yagi lahu raya, unless you are a talmid who has reached the level of psak. V'chol talmid shelo higi lahu ra'ah umore, any talmid who does not reach the level of hora'ah and he paskins, excuse me, Harize Shote Rasha V'gas Ruach. So he's all three. V'alav Nemar Ki Rabim Chalalim Hipila. It says about this person in Mishlei, she has felled many victims. It's talking about like the Isha Zara, the strange woman. V'chein Chacham She Higila Horav Eno More Harize Monea Torah. So too a Chacham who has reached the level of Hora'ah, but he does not paskin. Monea Torah, he's withholding Torah, and he's placing stumbling blocks in front of the blind. Regarding that person, it says that strong are the ones who she's killed. Okay, so one thing you see so far, by the way, is even though our Mishnah starts off by talking about din, which implies in a court setting, like on a beis din, it doesn't have to, but it implies that. Rambam is definitely applying this to all hora, which is also what the second Mishnah seems to say. So any psak, okay? I had wanted to go through this tonight, but I realized it's way too ambitious to do. But I recommend reading the Hakdama to Igros Moshe, to Rav Moshe Feinstein's Shilos and Shuvas, because he basically like raises the question. I forgot if he says someone asked him this, but basically like, who gave you the right to be Rav Moshe? Like, who gave you the right to paskin? And he basically says like, Chazal makes severe statements that if you are not in a place where you're on the level to paskin and you paskin, then that's really bad. But if you are on the level to paskin and you don't, then that's also really bad. And he basically like talks about how he reckoned with that, and then like ended up like answering questions. So that it's a really, really good hug I'm going to go through. Okay, then he gives Rambam gives a little musar to he says Elu hatalmidim aktanim. These does not mean like kids. He means like inferior talmidim, shelo hirba Torah karoi, who have not amassed sufficient Torah. V'hem mavakshin lihisgadel bifnei amei haaretz, and they want to be great in the eyes of the ignoramuses, uvein anshe iram, and the people in their towns. The koftzim v'yoshim rosh, they skip and jump and sit at the head. Ladin, and they sit at the head to in judgment. Ulhoros b'Yisrael to paskin in Israel. They're the ones who proliferate machlokos. They're the ones who destroy the world. They extinguish the light of Torah. And they ruin the vineyard of Hashem, master of legions. So this is what Shlomo meant in his chachma in Shir Shirim when he said, Achazu lanu shualim katanim b'chablim kramim v'karmenu smadar. I think we've been seized by foxes, little foxes that ruin vineyards, and our vineyard is blossoming. Okay, so Rambam is basically, kind of like just pointing out an example of this in his day. These like young whippersnappers who just want to go and be able to, I want to be a great posek. I'm gonna poskin left and right and open up my shulchan aruch and like so like that's bad. Okay, then he kind of repeats this a little bit in Sanhedrin, and I have not read this yet in its entirety because I just found this right before shiur. Hagas liba b'hora, someone whose heart is haughty in psak v'kovitz v'chotek hadin kodim shichakru beino levein atmos. That's interesting. He leaps and he decides the din before he's investigated privately until it's as clear to him as the sun. So that guy is the guy who the Mishnah is talking about. The Chachamim said you should be deliberate in judgment. And Eov said, a dispute that I did not know, I investigated. Okay, so it's interesting. He's putting the emphasis here on investigation because this is in Hilchos Sanhedrin, and he's talking about actually like inquiring about like the particulars of a case, not just like knowing halacha. It seems like in the previous one, he's talking about people who think that they know how to analyze halacha and they don't. Okay, then he says, Kol dayan sheba lifnei din, lefan of din, v'hischil l'demoso l'din pasuk shekvar yada amito. So any judge that a case comes before him, and he begins by comparing it to a din that has already been paskin, which he knows to be true. And there is someone in the country who's greater than he is in chachma, and he doesn't go and consult with him. So then that's included in the Rishayim whose hearts are haughty in psak. Ra'a al ra'a tavolo. Harm upon harm will come to him. All these things come from haughtiness, which leads to perversion of the din. So this is clarifying some of the parameters here about when should you consult others. So like if the first thing that presents itself to you is, oh, I've heard of this case before, and you don't go and double check, not just with yourself, but with someone who's greater than you, so then that's included in this category of gas liba b'hora. So gas liba b'hora is not just like people who want to make a name for themselves. It's even someone who's like just inappropriately confident in their expertise, to the point where they're not humble enough to investigate this law afresh and like consult an expert. Okay. Then he goes, this is the part that's like a little bit of a repetition. Not exactly. Ki rabim chalalim hipila. So she has felled many victims. Zeh talmid shelo higil hora umor. That's a student who has not reached the level of poskening, and he poskens. Va'atzumin kol harugeha, and strong are all those who she has felled. Zeh she higil hora ve'eno mora. That's someone who reaches hora and does not posken. V'hushi hador tzarich. That is if the generation needs him. Im yada sheisham roy lahora hora. If he knows that there's someone who is fit for poskening, umana atmo min hora, and he withholds from hora, harizeh meshubach. That's praiseworthy. If chol hamoneh atmo min din, and anyone here he brings it in here, anyone who withholds himself from din, moneh min eva v'gezel ushvu shav. V'hagas lehora shote rashu v'gazro. He just quotes it verbatim. Okay, so what's interesting about this to me? I mean, what would you say this means nowadays in the modern world, seemingly? I mean, I think this raises a modern issue. Yeah, Devorah?
Okay, I don't mean to like flaunt my grievances if they aren't appropriately placed over here, but I do think there could be a large issue with sort of like the getting smicha is not easy. However, many people do get smicha who may not be ready to poskin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's definitely true. That's a different modern issue than the one I was thinking of. But yeah, because it sounds like that issue was there even in the Rambam's time, right? These Talmidim, right? And I don't know. I honestly don't even know what smicha was in the time of the Rambam. Like, I don't know what that entailed. Like, I don't know if these little whippersnappers were doing this without the permission of their Rav, or if they were just like doing it casually. Yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah, that is a big problem. Yeah. Does someone else have their hand up? I saw the screen.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
is it like social media and everyone feels like they're an expert in everything because
Okay.
the
Yes,
internet,
that's
we have
also
all
true.
knowledge at our fingertips.
That is also true. Is people what do you call it? Like WebMD halacha, right? Like you look it up on your own and then you like make your own cases. Yeah, people definitely do that. In fact, hold on. Of course, we always have to have a book commercial. I'm not going to say that I've read this because I have not even opened it except the table of contents, but I can testify to it based on the author. So this is a new book by Rabbi Gil Student, Articles of Faith, Traditional Jewish Belief in the Internet Era. And one of his things in the table of contents is Torah authority in the internet age. And then in the next one is in defense of the local rabbi, so I'm curious to read what that is. What I was thinking of when I said modern age, I meant like, I meant what Lauren meant also, but I meant that, Rambam says that, you should poskin, if you're on the level to poskin and you poskin, that's good. But if you know that there is someone who is roy for hara'ah, then you should refrain. And in the olden days, it was not so easy to communicate with other chachamim, who are outside of your city. The question is now, like, would this mean that like a person who's roy for hara'ah should like consult someone who he knows to be better, like in every case? Like I just really wonder what the implications are practically. That there is, now, we have like I don't know who the Gedolei Hador are, but let's say like in America, definitely seems like one of the Gedolei Hador is Rav Shechter. Like, so should all poskim just send their questions to Rav Shechter? And it sounds like a facetious question. I could see cases in which like that would not be possible. Like, let's say it's a psak where the person is asking you personally and like them really well, but like I don't know, like maybe if you're in doubt about the din, maybe you should ask the Gadol Hador. So it's an open question. I'm not answering it. I'm just raising it. Okay, now we're gonna do, like I said, Rביnu Yona, who gives us a full treatment here. Okay, I'm just in the interest of time. I apologize. I'm not gonna type the translations. It's just you know what I'll do to compromise. I will post the translations or the Hebrew into the chat, so people who want to look at it can. Okay. Rביnu Yona says, Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi, Omer, Hachosek Atma Medin, Ve'afal Pisha Kasuv, Shoftim V'Shotrim Titin L'Chal B'Chol She'arecha, even though the pasuk says you should set up judges and officers in your gates, V'Kasuv Tzedek Tzedek Tirdof, and it says you should pursue righteousness you should pursue. Shed mitzvah ledun esadin. There's an actual mitzvah to judge. Zehu b'makom she'in sham dayanim acherim. That's if there are no other judges. Aval kol zman sheyuchal lachsoch es atzmo tov lo lahashlich ulo al acherim shemonea atzmo mikamas fekos. Anytime you can cast your yoke onto someone else, then it's better for you to do that. Sorry, anytime you can anytime you can refrain, it's better for you to cast your yoke on other people. Shemonea atzmo becomes because you're going to be removing yourself from many doubts. Yeah, Tamar?
I think maybe I'm not clear about what the advice is. Is it that there's a better dayan available, or like literally anyone else?
Okay. So that's the funny thing. Okay, in other Mefarshim, they explicitly say that there's someone who is better than you. Okay, in judgment. Here he doesn't say that, which I kind of like assume he means it. Like, certainly someone who's equal to you would seem to be fine, and certainly someone who's better than you. But like, what if there's someone who's just less qualified? Is he really saying you should do that? It's hard to tell, because he could have easily just said, "Tov lo lahashli ulo al dayan hatov mimeno," or something like on hatov mimeno, right? So he doesn't say that. So I think it's a good question. Okay, so what are these sfekos? What are these doubts? So he removes from himself animosity and theft. Shayotmi Beis Chayev Yisana Es Hadayanim. So someone who goes out of Beis Din liable is going to hate the judges. Okay, so that's one way to say it, which is that that the guy, whoever loses, is going to hate him. Okay, I saw someone else say that the guy is going to say he was not mahapech bezuchusi enough. He didn't search for he didn't work hard enough to try to find a favorable din for me. So it might not be tied to the result. It might be tied to like the perceived effort. So if he ends up making someone liable to pay money, and that person didn't really owe money, so then it's like he's stealing from him. And then Shavua Shav, a needless oath, Shema Yechayivenu Shavua Shelo Kedin. Maybe he'll make the guy take an oath that is not proper. V'nimsa Machshilo Shavuos Chinam, and he'll make him stumble by taking a vain oath. Okay, so these are all the pitfalls, like Tamar was saying, okay, that you can get into. And if you just refrain from judging, then you're not going to get into these. Okay, so you're not going to be like the cause of these sins. Okay, any questions on that? I think that factually it's pretty clear. Okay, so then he goes to the three condemnations. First, he says, "Gasli b'bahora, samach zeh hadavar lachosek atzma min din shehu inyan hafek minna." So that's like we were saying earlier, that withholding from din is the opposite of gasli b'bahora. Ki zeh chosek atzma min din mipnei shetzarich lefasko b'mitun uvi'un gadol. Person who withholds himself from the din is because he needs to paskin it with deliberation and great study, great analysis. V'davar alav l'toreach. See, this is interesting, and it's a burden to him. Sounds like he's just saying, like, get out of it because you got these consequences and it's not worth your time. Right? It does not sound like he's saying, like, find someone who's more qualified. So I find that interesting. Someone who's haughty in psak, who thinks about himself that he knows how to paskin without making any mistakes. So number one, he's a fool. So he's called a fool because he's wise in his own eyes. There's no foolishness greater than being wise in your own eyes. That's a Mishlei Podcast. Is Raisi chacham be'enav tikva l'ksil mimeno. So I've seen someone who's wise in his eyes. The fool has more hope than he does. Kiaxiel osa averos hu ba'atzmo yodea. I think it's supposed to be ha osa averos. The fool who does averos knows himself. Umakir, and he recognizes ki lo holech b'derech tova. He knows that he's not following a good path. He does not think that he's not making a mistake. And therefore there is hope in fixing him. Maybe he'll do tshuva. But someone who's wise in his own eyes, and whose heart is haughty and psak, what hope is there for him? Once he thinks he's a chacham, how can he go back? He'll seem like he's abandoning chacham and das. Okay, so this is the real shus, right? Is he's a shota because he thinks he can't make a mistake, and that's the biggest folly. And there's no hope of him returning, because if he admits that he can make mistakes, then it's like he's admitting he's not smart. Okay, so it's like a huge shtus. Okay, any questions or points on that? Yeah, Devorah?
I wonder if we can view Rבינו Yona's interpretation of the Mishnah as like the first half is sort of like when you're deciding what job to pick, like this is not the job to pick. And the second half is like if you are already in a position where you are judging, here is the behavior that you need to avoid.
So when you say job to pick, do you mean like to be like povea for din, like to set yourself up? Or do you mean like that's what it sounds like you mean, like to...
Yeah, I guess I'm envisioning you need to learn a lot to be. I don't think anyone can just be a dayan. Like presumably you have to study, and I mean the way that we have it is you have to get yadin. I don't know what exactly the Mishnah is thinking about. Yeah. But maybe you could view it as the first half is sort of like a cautionary, like this isn't a good road to start down, and the second half is advice for people who are already on the dayan road.
Okay, so that sounds like a great title for a novel, On the Dayan Road. I'm on board with you in terms of the Mishnah could be read that way, and I'm on board with you in terms of the implication of Rבינו Yona is that, but I feel like he said Kolzman. Yeah, Kolzman makes it sound like a case-by-case thing.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I'm really having a hard time with the idea that you could actually be a qualified Dayan and just not.
I know, right? It's
Yeah.
hard, yeah. And I think the question is going to be stronger when we see the Mefarshim who say that it's in specific cases. Okay, so we'll hold on. It'll get worse. Okay, so Russia is alpha pishu kihu shote. So even though he's a shote, ein bichlal oso lashon she'eno yarei chet. So shote just implies he's overconfident, but it does not imply that he lacks fear of God. Okay, fear of sin. So for that, it needs to say kihu Russia. It says he's Russia. She'im haisa bo yira shemayim. If he had yira shemayim, lo haya at b'dvarav kolkach. He wouldn't be so quick with his words. Ki yodehu shehashgaga matsuyahi bivnei adam. He knows that error is common among people. B'karav v'davar l'chol adam litos. And it's probable for any person to err. And even someone who's a great chacham. So I like how Rבינו Yona is taking it. He's saying like this. He's saying, look, first mistake that this guy's making is he thinks he's a real chacham. Okay, he's a chacham be'inav, and that's really, really, really foolish. Okay, but let's say he is a chacham, but he also happens to be God-fearing, and he knows that even chachamim make mistakes. Okay. So the fact that this guy is going ahead with it means that not only is he a chacham, he is also a rasha because he lacks yiras chet. Okay, because he's like discounting the possibility that, okay, fine, you want to think you're a chacham? Okay, fine, think you're a chacham, but to think you can't make mistakes and to not worry about mistakes in the Dvar Hashem, like in adjudicating the Dvar Hashem, that is a type of rishus. And then the last one is v'gas ruach. Okay, what else is there left, right? Afal pisha amar kihu shotev lo yirei chet. So even though it already said he's a fool and he's not Yerei, Ata Mosif Omer Kimitoch Gava Vagasus Haruach V'chi Rotel Hishtarer Srara Libo Gamba Hora Kadeshi Yiru Haolam Shepose Gazadin Mehera. So this guy also, not only is he foolish and lacking Yerei, he also wants to show off his authority by showing the whole world how fast he can paskin, fastest posik in the West. Laharos lahem, and to show them kihu chacham, and to show them that he look at me, I'm a chacham. V'yimanuhu shofet va'adon alehem, and I will be a judge and a master over you. V'zos hi Machshavah Torah. This is his evil plot. Hine ki shlosh hamidos ela yesh bagas libo b'hora umorim mibli ema v'fachan. All of these three midos are in the person who is haughty and hora, who paskins without awe and fear. May God save us from these people. Okay, yeah. All right. I actually want to do one more quick one, which is the Meiri, and then we'll like analyze and get everything together because I think again, these are mostly the same, but this will give us like a ability to see the nuances. Okay, Meiri says. Now here I just copied it the English Meiri, so I'll have that on screen. But I'm going to still translate. He's hiru shehe misalik atma minadin kamash yuchol shekoshu chosek atma minadin ratzalomar. So he says, this is warning a person to withdraw himself from din as much as possible, because anyone who is chosek atma minadin ratzalomar shafilu shenisman ladayan. Oh, so this is interesting. This is a what do you call a nice add-on to Rashi. Even if he's appointed as a judge on a case, yisalik atma migamar din, he should remove himself from the verdict. He should strive to reconcile, to negotiate with him, and to appease each one of the litigants. So he'll be removing Eva from himself, hatred. So that's like Rבינו Yona. So not actual theft, but meaning like the trace of theft. Klomar Shema lo yachto has a din karoi v'chein porik me'alav onesh. Okay, meaning he's not actually going to steal, but it's going to be like causing theft to occur. V'chein porik me'alav onesh shuashav. Rotzlomer srach shuashav. Shema hu mashbio shlokidin v'nishbar l'sheker v'nimsa nichshal al yadav shlokidin. So if you make someone swear falsely or in vain, then he's causing it. Here's where it's new. who shote Rosh v'gas ruach v'gas libo b'hora who kolo shnei devarim. So gas libo hora includes two things. Echad shenimhar lahoros below shum raya. So he's quick to paskin without any proof, but mesh eno barolo in something that is not clear to him. Kolkach. Oh, you know what? Sorry, I remember there's two girsas of this. One is yira, the other one is raya. Okay, so I don't know if it means he paskins without fear or he paskins without a clear proof, but in something that's not clear to him. V'nishan she'im. Oh, here we go. And he relies on the fact she'im ta'a o yachlok alav adam. So if anyone argues with him or challenges him, yamid svaras mitol pilpul. He'll just come up with a good pilpul. Come up with a good like Talmudic. What do they call it? What's the funny word for pilpul? The academic word. Casuistry. Okay. You're near. He'll come up with not that kind of kazoo. He'll come up with like a Talmudic argumentation to justify his opinion. Okay, so he's gonna basically be like rationalizing using like spurious legal reasoning to like support his view. But Shani's the second reasoning, the second element of Gas Libahura is Sha'achar Shahura V'ta'a after he paskins and then is found to have made a mistake. Makanter lahamid hora also derek nituach. He'll be antagonistic in like enforcing his psak through sheer force. What does this English say? Intimidating way. Okay. So unlike Rבינו Yona, who learns these three things as like three check boxes that this guy checks off, the Meiri is learning it as it'll manifest itself in one of two ways. That if he's caught, he'll either rationalize his psak or just push it through intimidation. Okay, so that's what he says. And then, I could have sworn there's one more. Hold on. I thought. Wait, let me just look at my my Pirkei Avos here. I thought someone said, in contrast to Rבינו Yona, that if someone is more qualified than you. Give me 1 second. Was it Rבינו Bachya? Rבינו Bachya says, no. Was it Rashbatz? I'll look at one more place. Can't find it. Okay, yeah, tomorrow?
It's a little bit general question. Is it better if I wait or can I?
Oh, no, this is a good time.
Okay, so I just am not sure if I understand what is the relationship between not doing a din because of trying to get pshara and not doing a din because like maybe someone else will do it.
Okay, so now let's go into the analysis of these mefarshim here. Okay, so we'll summarize first. Okay, so we have Rashi's approach. Oops, sorry. Rashi and did Rבינו Yona mention pshara? No. No, he didn't. Right? Okay, yeah. Okay, right. So that's the basic machlokas here. Okay, so you've got Rashi who says avoid din as long as there's a possibility of pshara. Okay, but then the implication is but don't sit out altogether. Okay. Rבינו Yona seems to be saying is avoid din whenever you can. Okay. And then you have let's call the Rambam the one in the middle, because the Rambam did have this thing in, I'm just gonna make sure I'm not imagining this, in here, which is Zeh shegi lahora ve'eno more v'hu sheyador tzarich lo v'im yeda sheyesham roi lahora uman atum min hora harzeh meshubach. I don't know if I want to actually make Rambam in the middle because he's not disagreeing with Rashi, but I'm going to put him here anyway. So Rambam says avoid din as long as there's a superior, a judge who is superior to you. Okay, I'm just going to add Rambam Yona. So avoid doing whatever you can because it's not worth the sfekos or the tircha or the tircha or the pitfalls. And then implications even, so I guess as long as you can cast your yoke on another judge, and then in brackets we're saying seemingly even if he isn't as qualified as you. We don't know that for sure. That seems to be that. Okay, so the question is like what do we oh, and then let's just summarize the rest of Rבינו Yona here is shote equals chacham be'enav, okay, which is the greatest folly and is beyond teshuvah. Then you've got Russia, which is lacking yiras chet because he assumes he can't make a mistake. And then gas ruach is ego. Is there a word for when you're looking for just like to boost your reputation? I know egomaniacal it fits there. Is there a more specific word? I'll just say like, chasing after.
Self-aggrandizing?
Say again?
No,
That
just
sounds-
like self-aggrandizing.
Yeah, self-aggrandizing. That's good. Self-aggrandizing. Okay. And then you've got the Meiri, who says, so he says, actually, I'm just going to put this over here. According to the Meiri, it's someone who what do you call it? Who, when caught making a mistake, falls back on his like sophisticated Talmudic casuistry to defend. Oh, that's not how you spell it. Casuistry. To defend his erroneous psak, or he bullies his he bullies people into accepting it. All right, so I think this summarizes the main points. So the question here is what's the machlokes, especially between Rashi and Rבינו Yona, and are they learning the Mishnah differently? Like, what's their, is it a different like takeaway here? Yeah, Lauren.
It seems like Rashi is saying like they should still be involved in like being a judge in the sense of like you might be involved in mediating a b'shara or encouraging the b'shara. But it seems like Rבינו Yona wants them to not be the judge altogether. It seems
Right.
like not even act as a judge really.
Yeah, I agree with you. Right. So it seems like Rבינו Yona is avoid being a judge. Right. It does sound like a huge machlokes. Yeah, Devorah.
Yeah, so I wonder if Rashi is now Lauren has me thinking about just Rashi versus Rבינו Yona. I wonder if Rashi is cautious about like the haughtiness that will come from actually like delivering a judgment and that being followed and sort of the ego boost that would come from that. Rבינו Yona seems to be more concerned, and then Pshara is fine because you're not
Right.
doing that. Rבינו Yona maybe is concerned about sort of the position of a dayan, whether you're getting them to do pshara or whether you're doing din, sort of that position can make you
Okay, I like that.
have all these character flaws.
Okay, I like that. Okay, so this is Devorah's judgment. Ha 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 ha. Is that that the machlokes between Rashi and Rבינו Yona seems to boil down to whether we're concerned about the the act of judgment or the role of being a judge. Okay, Rashi is fine with people serving as a judge as long as they strive to avoid the act of issuing a ruling, because that's where the trouble starts. That's where the trouble comes from. Whereas Rabbeinu Yona seemingly holds that all the problems come from serving in that capacity, or serving that role in any capacity. So you should avoid that as much as possible. That's really interesting. Yeah, I like that theory. Yeah, Tamar?
Okay, I think I maybe don't exactly understand still. Like, do we have an answer? Yes, we don't answer the question of like, is Shara better for the litigants? And then also, if so, why? Because I think we're talking about the perfection of the judge now, but like, wouldn't you think that you'd have to do what's better for the case?
Yeah, it's funny. None of them except the Rambam seem to be talking about that, right? Like this Mishnah seems to be focusing totally on what's good for the judge, which is not to say that Rashi and Rabbeinu Yona would deny these points. But yeah, it seems like they're not saying it. And we have not talked about why Pshara is the ideal. And in fact, I don't know if I mean, we could speculate about that, but I don't think any of the Mefarshim are addressing that. They're taking like that as a given. And we'd really have to look at the Rambams there, those psukim and those ideas to see why.
It doesn't this, it just seems to me like this would be a very important component of understanding Rashi. Like, if Shara is, the right thing to do for Jewish society for some reason, then I would think that would be an important component of this answer.
I think it would be an important component of appreciating his answer, but it seems like since the whole thrust of the Mishnah, see, if the Mishnah said you should strive for Pshara, then I would agree with you, is that we wouldn't be able to say that we had learned Rashi, that we understood Rashi without that. But since his emphasis is just on not doing din whenever you can, and the Mishnah is saying, yeah, don't do din because of these reasons and exposing yourself to these things, all we need to know is that Pshara is preferred, but I don't even know if we need to know why it's preferred. Like, for example, not that you're allowed to do this because you're not, but let's say we held that that you could ask a Navi for psak, so I think this Mishnah could still work where Rashi would say, you should withhold yourself from psak as long as you can ask a Navi, because if you paskin, then all these bad things might happen. So we wouldn't have to understand why asking a Navi for psak is better, I don't think. Because again, I'm saying because the concern is the fallout on the judge. There are going to be cases, there is a sugya of like why Pshara is better, but I just don't think Rashi is even addressing that, and I don't think we need to address that.
Okay, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay, anyone else want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to respond to Tamar's question about Pshara. Like, I think, not to maybe go into the whole thing, but one thing I would just think that if people come to an agreement on their own, then that will avoid hatred of the judge. Like, different things, those descriptions that are coming out, they're not going to direct their negative energy towards the judge. So it's like also better in the judge's interest, not just for society's interest, but for him himself, it's better.
Yeah, I think that actually fits in with the Rambam, and I think based on that, if we do want to have like a one-word answer, not that Tamar's asking for a one-word answer, but I think shalom would be the answer, right? Because like the Rambam says at the end of Hilchos Chanukah, shalom is the purpose of the entire Torah, and it seems like Pshara is a more direct embodiment of shalom than mishpat. Mishpat can bring about shalom in that it ends the quarrel, but there are all these lingering effects, like Lauren was saying, of the hatred of the judge, or the animosity towards each other, or the fact that like one person might actually get money stolen from them because if it's shelo kedin, or involving the Shem Hashem in a needless way. So like I think that is going to be where the answer lies. All right, let's do this. Let's go through our questions and just see if through these questions we can get any more ideas. Okay, so the Mishnah seems to suggest that withholding oneself from din is a good thing, but isn't din a good thing? Don't we have shoftim and Sanhedrin halacha? How does this mishnah change our havmina and view of the default rule of din in the Torah? So I think this just reinforces the idea that din is a necessary evil, and that really the Torah does want pshara, and that's going to be the sugya of pshara, okay, which again is not our sugya, but something to do with shalom. What decision-making scenario does the first? Yeah, Ayala.
Just also to part of the first question, are we saying that it's din may be good for society, or shoftim and Sanhedrin are good for society, but for the individual who is the judge, it's not going to be good? I mean,
Right.
Also maybe pshara would be better anyway. But.
Yeah, no, that's also true. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of I know it's machlokas about whether having a king is an ideal or like a concession, but everyone would agree that being a king puts you at risk of ram levavecha v'shachachta Hashem elokecha, haughtiness, right? So being a judge is or let's say like everyone agrees that being a doctor is a good thing, but like when you're a doctor, well, I guess it depends on what kind of doctor, but when you're a doctor, you also might be responsible for people dying, making the wrong decision. So like it's one of those types of things. Okay, what decision-making scenario does the first clause describe? So that is going to differ according to Rashi versus Rambam. Yona, according to Rashi, it's you're going to be involved as a dayan, but are you going to do din or pshara? And then according to Rambam Yona, it's skip town if you can, and as long as you could put your yoke on someone else. Rambam Yona would admit that if you can't if you are the only judge in town, then you should judge, right? That seems to be clear. But he's saying if you could push it off to someone else, and the question is, what if it's someone who's less qualified? On the surface, you would say, well, that would seem to, how could he possibly advocate that? On the other hand, like, I don't know, like there is a halachic reality to psak, and there's a practical reality to getting it, getting this problem resolved, and yeah, I'm not sure. Like, would the Mishleic person say, like, yeah, this guy's not as qualified as me, but like it was like this. A doctor, I don't think could ever say this. If you knew that you were more qualified than another doctor, you wouldn't just say go to another doctor. But with halacha, like, what's the responsibility? The responsibility is the posek has to determine the Ratzon Hashem through the legal system as much as possible. And if the I don't know what do you call it? Someone who's asking for the shoel, I guess someone's asking for psak, is just as long as they're relying on the psak, then that's fine. So if I'm a better posek and I like say, no, go see this inferior rabbi, as long as that rabbi is doing what they think is the halacha and the person follows them, then elu v'elu divrei Elokim chayim, right? So like, like in the case, like so in other words, it's not like medicine where like the person will die, but on the other hand, halacha isn't a free for all. Like we do hold that there is better psak, so that's where I'm not sure about. Yeah, Tamar.
I was just wondering about like the effect of this advice. Like now, what all of your psak is by people who didn't learn this mishnah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that is a funny sort of thing, right? I mean, yeah, it's troubling to be in Yona, right? Yeah, either people didn't learn the mishnah or people who are haughty, right? Who are paskin, yeah, it's tough. Yeah, I it's part of the question I have in Yona. I can't remember. You'll have to ask Isaiah if we answered that question. I feel like we took it up. I don't remember if we answered it. But okay. Again, clearly I'm starting to fade. What does closing as women didn't mean? Okay, so we got that. That was part of the first question. The second question. What are the three results of Eva, Gezel, and Shvushav? So the people will hate you who either got the bad psak or think that you didn't work hard enough. Gezel is you might be mechayev someone shelo kedin, and Shvushav is you might be mechayev someone shvu shelo kedin. Who's the subject? Are they hating him or is he hating someone? So they're hating him. How do these three flow from closing as women din? We got that. What does Gasli Bohora mean? We got that in terms of the definition of the Rambam gave a lot of parameters, and then the Meiri said that it's going to be really after the psak. That's another interesting thing about the Meiri is Meiri holds Gasli Bohora means you're gas about the psak that you gave, not that you're gas in the activity of paskening. So I think that's an interesting thing about how you relate to the psak that you gave. It's kind of like someone who's lomed lekanter, to be a contrarian, but in defense of your own psak historically. Like you're just you're just going to deny whatever they say and like try to work out some sort of svara to like justify it, or you're going to force it on them. and refuse to admit that you're wrong. What do Shote, Rasha, and Gas Ruach mean? We define that. How are these characteristics of Gas Libu Hora'ah? So what does Gas Ruach add to Gas Libu? So Rubin and Yona really answered that. What is the relation between the two halves? Is that they're opposites, and there are two emotional extremes about the person who the good extreme. It's funny to call it an extreme and good, but like really wanting to avoid psak and viewing it as necessary evil versus like I can't wait to get my hands on some more psak and like really indulging in it. Who's the audience? So it really is people who are in the position to paskin, but also are prone to these mitos, or prone to these like thinking that it can also be intellectual mistake of like, well, I have a responsibility to do this. Yeah. This really is Mishlei, the way Rבינו and Yona is learning it. Like, just get out of it as much as you can. Yeah, interesting. What does the middle ground look like? So the middle ground practically is if you were the only show in town, possibly if you're the best posek in town, and then you have to have this reverence and this awareness that you can make mistakes and this need to investigate and this willingness to back down if someone points out a mistake. So it's really humility seems to be the biggest thing, which is not surprising given the fact that the Mishnah says Gas Ruach. And then what makes Pshara better? So we theorize that has to do with Shalom, but that's really a separate sugya. Okay, so this was an interesting Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. We didn't get, I don't feel like we got like conceptual ideas in the same way that we usually do, but I do think that this helps me appreciate what a posek needs to be and what their mentality needs to be and like how you should relate to the system. And I don't know if any of you have felt this way in learning halacha. When you're early on in learning halacha, there is a certain feeling of like misplaced empowerment, not necessarily for posking for other people, but like, yeah, I could do this, and I think the more you learn about halacha, the more afraid you are of poskening, because these are weighty issues. And this is definitely part of why I never want to poskin for anyone, because I just, I followed this advice. I mean, again, I had Rambam Moscow saying I'm not a posek, but like, I never want to be in a position where like someone else's halacha is dependent on me. That's that's a lot of weight there. So yeah, I hope this is beneficial. Again, it's for the dayanim, so it's not like it directly applies to our lives, but I think it's still useful.
Yeah, no, it was useful. I feel like also it's just like in any position, kind of in terms of being wary of judgment and judging people. I feel like it's good to have that.
Right. Yeah. Giving advice, even, right. Giving guidance. Yeah.
And I think the arrogance, I think often I don't appreciate it until recently, the arrogance that can come sometimes when you're giving advice, and to be wary of that, I guess.
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing that I am prone to, which is, did I tell this group? No, this is the first time we've had shiur since Yom Kippur, right? So I forgot if I said this elsewhere about the midah that I'm doing tshuva on. No, I didn't. Okay, so if I yell shaking your head no, then that means I probably didn't give it in a women's shiur or in a co-ed shiur. So last year's tshuva was on a halachic issue, which I was successful in, which I'm happy about. And this year I went into Yom Kippur struggling to figure out what I'm going to want to work on for this year. And I had this discussion with Yoshua, and suddenly it came to me that this is a weird teshuva that I'm doing. It's going to be in the form of a mantra, and the mantra extends to many areas of my life that I feel like if I got this, it would really help. And the mantra is slow down. Okay. And part of that has to do with like not saying no to things and like taking on too much stuff. Part of it has to do with like meditation. Part of it has to do with like always being busy with stuff. But part of it, I think, has to do with I think many times I'm too quick to jump to an answer or to jump to respond. And most of the time it's because I'm excited, or because it is like encouraging to the learning process. But I do think that I need to work on thinking before I respond in the context of a shiur. And so I don't know how you can help me with that, but mute me until no, for the first like second out. Yeah, but that is something that so what I was gonna say is like I can see that, not like an overt haughtiness of like I'm trying to answer questions as much as possible, but haughtiness in like whoa, do you really think you could just answer this without thinking? Like maybe you should think, and I feel like I need to work on that. So I think I'm glad you mentioned that, Lauren, about the application elsewhere. Yeah. Okay. This was fun. And next week, Bleed we have another shiur, and the week after we will not. All right, have a good night. Good job, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Good night.
Thank
All right,
you.
thanks for joining.